After 6 long months overseas, Marine Sergeant Jake Carter couldn't wait to surprise his little girl. But when he finally saw her, his heart stopped. The bright, bubbly child he remembered now had haunting red marks on her arms. And when he asked what happened, her whispered answer shattered his world. What he did next would change their lives forever. Before we dive into this emotional journey, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit that like button and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us of the power of love and resilience. Don't miss what happens next. The homecoming. The bus shuddered to stop, its brakes hissing like a sigh of relief. Sergeant Jake Carter tightened his grip on his duffel bag, his knuckles whitening under the weight of 6 months of sand, sweat, and silence. The Colorado air was crisp, sharp with the scent of pine, nothing like the dry, acrid burn of the desert he'd left behind. He stepped onto the pavement, his boots hitting home soil for the first time since deployment. The base was quiet, just a few scattered soldiers milling about, their voices low. Jake didn't linger. He had one mission now, and it wasn't assigned by any commanding officer. His truck sat where he'd left it in the long-term parking, dust clinging to its dark blue paint. The engine turned over with a familiar growl, and Jake exhaled, rolling his shoulders. He could still feel the weight of his gear, the phantom pressure of his rifle strap. But none of that mattered now. Emily, his 10-year-old daughter, had no idea he was coming home today. No tearful airport reunion. No stage welcome. Just him, showing up at her school like it was any other afternoon. He wanted to see her face, pure and unfiltered, the way it used to light up when he'd surprise her with ice cream or a silly joke. The drive to Mountain View Elementary was muscle memory. He passed the diner where they'd shared pancakes every Saturday, the park where he'd taught her to ride a bike. Everything was the same. And yet, as he pulled into the school's pickup lane, his stomach twisted with something he couldn't name. Parents clustered near the entrance, chatting idly while they waited. Jake parked and stepped out, scanning the playground. Kids spilled out of the building in a wave of backpacks and laughter. His eyes darted, searching for Emily's dark braids, the bright pink sneakers she'd begged for last Christmas. Then he saw her. She wasn't running, wasn't laughing. Emily stood near the edge of the blacktop, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding something in. Her unicorn sweater, the one she declared her favorite, was too big on her now, the sleeve swallowing her hands. Jake's chest tightened. "Em!" he called, waving. Her head snapped up. For a heartbeat, she just stared. Then recognition flared in her eyes, and she sprinted toward him. "Dad!" He caught her in his arms, lifting her off the ground. She felt lighter, smaller. He buried his face in her hair, breathing in the strawberry shampoo she'd loved since she was 5. "I missed you," she whispered, her voice muffled against his shoulder. Jake swallowed hard. "Missed you more, firecracker." When he set her down, he kept a hand on her shoulder, studying her. Her smile was there, but it was thin, like a shadowed grin he remembered. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded too fast. "Yeah, just tired." Jake frowned but didn't push. "Come on, let's get out of here." Emily climbed into the truck, struggling a little with the seatbelt. As she tugged at the strap, her sleeve slid up, revealing a jagged red mark along her forearm. Jake froze. It wasn't a scratch. It wasn't a scrape from playground. The lines were too even, too deliberate. His pulse roared in his ears. "Em," he said carefully, "what happened to your arm?" She yanked her sleeve down, her face paling. "Nothing. Just a game at recess." A game. Jake's fingers clenched around the steering wheel. He knew fear when he saw it. Knew lies, too. And Emily had never been a good liar. The drive home was silent. Jake's mind raced, scenarios flashing like gunfire, bullies, accidents, something worse. Beside him, Emily stared out the window, her fingers picking at the edge of her sleeve. Whatever had happened, one thing was certain. This wasn't over. And Jake wouldn't rest until he had the truth. The truth unfolds. The house felt too quiet. Jake set Emily's backpack down by the door, his eyes never leaving her as she shuffled into the kitchen. She moved differently now, slower, like every step took effort. The Emily he remembered would have been bouncing off the walls, chattering a mile a minute about school, her friends, anything. Now silence. You hungry? Jake asked, forcing lightness into his voice. I could make pancakes. You know, the kind with the chocolate chips you like. Emily shrugged, sliding into a chair at the table. Not really. Jake's jaw tightened. Since when did his kid turn down chocolate chip pancakes? He busied himself with the skillet anyway, cracking eggs, stirring batter. The familiar routine steadied him. Cooking had always been their thing. Back before deployment, they'd made pancakes every Sunday, Emily standing on a stool next to him, giggling when he pretended to flip one onto the ceiling. Now, she just watched, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. So, Jake said casually, how's school been? Fine. Still like math? Kinda. Jake poured batter onto the hot griddle. The sizzle filled the silence. He glanced at Emily's arms, her sleeves still pulled down past her wrists. You never told me about that game at recess. Emily stiffened. It's nothing. Didn't look like nothing. She didn't answer. The pancakes bubbled, but Jake didn't flip them. He turned the stove off instead and crouched beside her chair. Look at me. Reluctantly, she lifted her gaze. Her eyes were too old for a 10-year-old. If someone's hurting you... No. She jerked back, knocking her knee against the table. It's not like that. It's just a stupid game. What kind of game leaves marks like that? Emily's breath hitched. For a second, Jake thought she might actually tell him. Then her face shuttered closed again. I'm tired, she whispered. Can I go to my room? Jake wanted to push, wanted to demand answers, but the fear in her eyes stopped him. Yeah, he said softly. Go ahead. She fled upstairs. Jake stood there, fists clenched. The untouched pancakes cooled on the griddle, the chocolate chips hardening into little dark spots. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. His thumb hovered over Lisa's name. They hadn't spoken since he deployed. Not really. Just the bare minimum. Emily's school stuff, the occasional update. But this couldn't wait. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. Jake! Lisa sounded surprised. Is everything okay? No, he said bluntly. It's not. A pause. Then, wary. What's wrong? I just picked Emily up from school. She's got marks on her arms. Lisa. Like someone grabbed her. Hard. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. What kind of marks? Red ones. Finger-shaped ones. Another beat of quiet. Too quiet. Lisa, what aren't you telling me? She exhaled shakily. Look, it's complicated. Complicated how? Emily's been different lately. Moody. Withdrawn. I thought it was just, preteen stuff. Jake's grip on the phone tightened. And the marks. I don't know. Maybe she fell at school. She told me it was from a game. Well, there you go. Kids play rough sometimes. Lisa. Jake's voice dropped low. Who's been around her? A beat. 2. Then, so quiet he almost missed it. Derek's been staying over sometimes. Derek. Lisa's new boyfriend. Jake had never met him. Only heard the name in passing during one of Emily's rush phone calls. What's he like? Nice. Normal. God, Jake, you're not seriously suggesting. I'm suggesting my kid comes home with bruises and won't tell me how she got them. So, yeah, I'm asking. Lisa huffed. You're overreacting. Emily's fine. Like hell she is. Look, I've got to go. We'll talk later. The line went dead. Jake stared at his phone, his pulse pounding in his ears. He knew that tone. Lisa used it when she didn't want to deal with something, when she'd rather pretend everything was okay than face the truth. Well, he wasn't pretending. Upstairs, Emily's door was closed. Jake knocked softly. Em, you okay in there? No answer. He eased the door open. Emily was curled on her bed, her back to him. She didn't move when he sat beside her. Hey, he murmured. I'm sorry if I scared you earlier. She didn't respond. Jake gently touched her shoulder. Whatever's going on, you can tell me. I won't be mad. I promise. Emily rolled over then, her eyes red-rimmed. You'll leave again, she whispered. The words hit like a punch to the gut. What? If I tell, you'll get mad, and then you'll leave. Jake's throat tightened. I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. She searched his face, like she was trying to decide if she could believe him. Then, quietly he almost didn't hear it. Derek says it's our secret. Ice flooded Jake's veins. What is? Emily's chin trembled. She tugged up her sleeve, revealing the marks again. This time, Jake could see the distinct shape of fingers. He says it's how you play the game. But it hurts. Jake's vision went white at the edges. Rage, cold and sharp, coiled in his chest. But he kept his voice steady. Listen to me. None of this is your fault. Okay? None of it. A tear slipped down her cheek. Jake pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Over her shoulder, he stared at the wall, his mind already racing. Derek had touched his kid, hurt his kid, and Jake was going to make damn sure he never got the chance to do it again. The breaking point. Jake sat on the edge of Emily's bed long after she fell asleep, watching the slow rise and fall of her shoulders under the blanket. The nightlight cast soft shadows across her face, the same nightlight she insisted she was too old for last year. Now, he was glad she still had it. His fingers itched for his phone. He needed to call someone. The police? Child services? His hands shook at the thought of dragging Emily through an investigation, forcing her to relive whatever Derek had done to her. But doing nothing wasn't an option. He stood carefully, not wanting to wake her, and crept into the hallway. The floorboards creaked under his weight as he paced, his mind racing. Think. Strategize. You're a Marine. This is just another mission. Except this wasn't some enemy combatant. This was his little girl. He pulled out his phone and dialed the only person he trusted right now, his brother, Matt. 3 rings. Then a groggy. Jake? You know it's 2 a.m., right? I need your help. Jake's voice was rough, barely controlled. Matt was instantly alert. What's wrong? It's Emily. Lisa's boyfriend. He's been hurting her. A sharp inhale. Jesus. How bad? Jake closed his eyes. Bruises. She says it's a game. Son of a bitch. Matt's voice hardened. You calling the cops? I don't know yet. I need proof. Lisa's already brushing it off. Then we get proof. Matt paused. You remember Tyler Russo? From high school? He's a detective now. Jake's grip tightened on the phone. Think he'd help. For this? Hell yeah. They talked for 10 more minutes, forming a plan. By the time Jake hung up, his hands had stopped shaking. He had a direction now. A target. He turned and froze. Emily stood in the hallway. Her stuffed bunny clutched to her chest. Dad! Her voice was small. Are you mad? Jake's heart cracked. No, baby. Never at you. He knelt, opening his arms. She ran into them, burying her face in his shoulder. I don't want to go back to Mom's, she whispered. His chest burned. You don't have to. But the judge said... I don't care what the judge said. He pulled back, cupping her face. I'm not letting anyone hurt you again. Ever. Emily searched his eyes, looking for the truth in them. Then she nodded, trusting him completely in a way that nearly broke him. Can I sleep with you tonight? She asked. Yeah, firecracker. Of course. He carried her to his room, tucking her into the bed he hadn't slept in for 6 months. She was asleep before her head hit the pillow. Jake sat on the edge of the bed, watching the clock tick toward dawn. Tomorrow, he'd call Tyler. Tomorrow, he'd start the war. But tonight, he'd stand guard, because no one was getting near his daughter again. Not while he was still breathing. The first shot. The morning light crept through the blinds, painting stripes across the bedroom floor. Jake hadn't slept. He'd spent the night watching the digital clock march forward. Each minute tightened the coil of rage in his chest. Emily stirred beside him, her small fingers clutching the edge of his T-shirt. He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, careful not to wake her. The bruises on her arms looked darker in the pale dawn light. His phone buzzed on a nightstand. Matt, Tyler's waiting at the station. Bring him's medical records if you have them. Jake's thumb hovered over the screen. Medical records. The thought sent acid churning in his gut. How many times had Emily come home with playground injuries he'd never known about? A soft knock at the bedroom door made him jump. Dad! Emily's voice was thick with sleep. Why are you dressed? Jake forced a smile, smoothing the worry from his face before turning to her. Got some errands to run, firecracker. You hungry? She sat up, rubbing her eyes. The sleeve of her pajama top rode up, revealing the edge of a bruise. Jake's fingers twitched with the need to do something, anything. Can we have waffles? She asked. Anything you want. The kitchen smelled of coffee and maple syrup by the time Emily shuffled in, her stuffed bunny tucked under one arm. Jake watched her climb onto a stool at the counter, her movements careful, like she was used to making herself small. Em, he said, sliding a plate toward her, I need to ask you something important. She froze with a forkful of waffle halfway to her mouth. Does Derek ever? Jake chose his words carefully. Does he ever take pictures when you play these games? The fork clattered onto the plate. Emily's eyes went wide, her breathing quickening. That was answer enough. Jake's vision tunneled. He gripped the counter until his knuckles turned white. When he trusted his voice again, he asked, Does Mom know? Emily shook her head violently, tears welling up. He said she'd get mad at me, that it was our special. The waffle knife in Jake's hand snapped against the cutting board. Emily flinched. Instantly, Jake was on his knees beside her, pulling her close. I'm not mad at you, he whispered into her hair. Never at you. She trembled against him, her small frame shaking with silent sobs. Jake made a promise then, to her and to himself. Derek would never touch another kid again. An hour later, with Emily settled at a friend's house. Just for a little while, firecracker. Jake walked into the police station with a file folder of photos he'd taken of Emily's bruises and a voice recording of her tearful confession. Tyler Russo looked every inch a detective, sharp-eyed, broad-shouldered, with a handshake that could crush bones. Jake, he nodded, leading him to a small interview room. Matt filled me in. Jake slapped the folder onto the table. I want him buried. Tyler flipped through the photos, his expression darkening. We'll need a formal statement from Emily, a medical exam. No. Jake's fist hit the table. She's been through enough. And without it, Lisa's boyfriend walks. Tyler met his glare. You know how these cases go. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Somewhere in the station, a phone rang. Jake exhaled slowly. How long do we have before Lisa finds out I'm here? Depends. Tyler leaned forward. You willing to let us put a wire on you? A cold smile touched Jake's lips. What do you need me to do? By the time Jake left the station, the wire hidden under his shirt, the Colorado sun hung high in the sky. Somewhere across town, Derek was going about his day, unaware, and Jake was coming for him. The trap, the diner smelled of grease and burnt coffee, just like it had when Jake used to bring Emily here for Saturday breakfasts. He chose the same booth by the window, the one with a clear view of the parking lot and easy access to back exit. Old habits died hard. His phone buzzed. Tyler, we're set. Recording starts when you hit call. Jake wiped his palms on his jeans. The wire taped to his chest itched, but the discomfort was nothing compared to the acid churning in his gut. Across the table, the napkin holder reflected his face back at him. Tired eyes, clenched jaw, the faint scar above his eyebrow from a shrapnel wound he'd gotten in Fallujah. The bell above the door jingled. Derek walked in like he owned the place, his polo shirt crisp, his smile easy. Jake's fingers curled into fists under the table. Sergeant Carter. Derek slid into the booth, extending a hand. Heard a lot about you. Jake ignored the hand. Cut the crap? You know why I called this meeting. Derek's smile didn't waver. He signaled the waitress for coffee. Lisa said you were the dramatic type. The coffee arrived. Jake waited until the waitress was out of earshot before leaning in. You touch my daughter again and I'll... You what? Derek chuckled, stirring sugar into his cup. I'm dating her mother. I have every right to discipline a kid when she acts up. Discipline. The word sent white-hot rage through Jake's veins. He forced himself to breathe. Emily, show me your idea of discipline. Derek's spoon clinked against the mug. For the first time, his smile faltered. Kids exaggerate. She probably fell off her bike. Funny. Jake pulled out his phone, flipping to the photos of Emily's bruises. These look like fingerprints to you? The color drained from Derek's face. He glanced around the diner before hissing. You're making a mistake. No, you did when you put your hands on my kid. Jake tapped the table where his phone lay. I've got copies of these with my lawyer and the police. Derek's coffee cup rattled as he set it down too hard. What do you want? Confession. On record. Jake leaned back, letting the silence stretch. The wire beneath his shirt felt suddenly heavier. Derek wiped his mouth with a napkin. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, meaner. You think you're smart? Coming back here playing hero? He leaned in, his breath smelling of coffee and mints. That little bitch lied. She likes the attention. Always whining, always. Jake moved faster than he'd ever moved in combat. His hand shot across the table, gripping Derek's throat hard enough to cut off his air. Coffee splashed across the formica as Derek gagged, his fingers clawing at Jake's wrist. Say that again, Jake growled. I dare you. Derek's face turned purple. His legs kicked under the table, knocking over the sugar dispenser. A hand clamped down on Jake's shoulder. That's enough. Tyler's voice. Jake released Derek, who collapsed back against the booth, gasping. The diner had gone silent. Every eye was on them. Tyler flashed his badge. Derek Malloy, you're under arrest for child abuse. Anything you say. You set me up. Derek wheezed, rubbing his throat. His eyes darted between Jake and Tyler. This is entrapment. Tyler yanked him to his feet. Funny. Sound like a confession to me. He nodded toward the diner security camera. And I'm betting the footage will agree. As Tyler cuffed Derek and read him his rights, Jake stood, his body humming with adrenaline. He pulled out his phone and sent a single text to Matt. Got him. Outside, the Colorado sun beat down on the parking lot asphalt. Jake tilted his face up, breathing deep for the first time in days. It wasn't over. There would be court dates, custody battles, Lisa's inevitable fury. But for now, Emily was safe. And that was all that mattered. The aftermath. The police station's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects. Jake sat on an uncomfortable plastic chair, his knee bouncing uncontrollably as he watched the clock tick past midnight. The scent of stale coffee and industrial cleaner filled the air, mixing with a metallic tang of blood still crusted under his fingernails from where he'd gripped Derek's throat. Tyler pushed through the interrogation room door, his tie loosened in dark circles under his eyes. Lisa's here. Jake stiffened. Where's Emily? With your brother. Protective Services agreed to temporary custody given the circumstances. Tyler rubbed his temples. You should know, Lisa's screaming wrongful arrest. Claims Derek would never hurt Emily. A bitter laugh escaped Jake's lips. She see the photos? Yeah. Tyler's expression darkened. Said kids bruise easily. Called it parenting differences. The rage Jake had kept leashed since the diner surged hot in his chest. He stood abruptly, the chair screeching against the linoleum. Let me talk to her. Bad idea. You're already on thin ice after the choking incident. Tyler blocked his path. Let the system work, Jake. The system? Jake's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. The system left my daughter with that monster for months. Before Tyler could respond, a door slammed down the hall. Lisa's shrill voice echoed through the station. This is harassment. My boyfriend's respected. Jake moved past Tyler, following the sound. Lisa stood at the front desk, her designer handbag clutched like a weapon. Her blonde hair was mussed, her normally perfect makeup smudged. When she saw Jake, her eyes narrowed to slits. You, she spat. You did this. Jake crossed his arms, his biceps straining against the fabric of his shirt. Did what? Protected our daughter? Ruined my life. Lisa's voice cracked. Derek's a good man. Emily's always been dramatic. You know that. Jake saw red. He took a step forward, his entire body trembling with restraint. Look me in the eye, he growled, and tell me you never noticed those bruises. Lisa's gaze flickered away. That's what I thought. Jake pulled out his phone, pulling up the recording from the diner. Derek's voice filled the hallway. That little bitch lied. She likes the attention. Lisa's hands flew to her ears. Stop it. That's edited. A new voice cut through the tension. Actually, it's not. A woman in a gray pantsuit approached, her heels clicking sharply. Jake recognized her immediately. Assistant District Attorney Reynolds. They'd met briefly during his divorce proceedings. Ms. Carter, Reynolds said coolly, we have sufficient evidence to charge Mr. Malloy with child endangerment and emotional abuse. The DA's office will be filing for termination of your custody rights tomorrow morning. Lisa's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You can't. We can. Reynolds turned to Jake. Sergeant, the judge will want Emily's testimony, but given her age and trauma, we'll use a recording instead. Be at family court at 8 a.m. As Reynolds walked away, Lisa rounded on Jake, her finger jabbing his chest. This isn't over. I'll get the best lawyer. Jake caught her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but enough to make her gasp. Listen carefully, he said, his voice deathly calm. You chose him over Emily. Now you live with that. He released her and walked away, Tyler falling into step beside him. The night air outside was crisp, cleansing. Tyler whistled low. That was ice cold. Jake stared at the stars, his breath fogging in the cold air. She left our daughter with a predator. You really go for full custody? Jake thought of Emily's tear-streaked face, the way she clung to him last night. Damn right I am. His phone buzzed. Matt, Em's asking for you. Says she had a nightmare. Jake was already moving toward his truck. The battle wasn't over. The real fight would come in court tomorrow. But right now, his little girl needed him. And this time, nothing would stop him from being there. The storm before the calm. The courthouse loomed like a gavel waiting fall. Jake adjusted his tie in the reflection of his truck window, the same navy blue one he'd worn to his promotion ceremony years ago. Today wasn't about rank or service. It was about becoming the father Emily needed. Matt pulled up beside him, Emily visible in the back seat, clutching her stuffed bunny. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. Jake's chest tightened. She'd insisted on coming, despite his protests. I want to tell the judge, she'd said last night, her chin trembling but determined. I'm not scared anymore. Jake opened the car door. Ready, firecracker? Emily nodded, slipping her small hand into his. Her palm was sweaty. Inside, the halls echoed with the sounds of shuffling papers and murmured conversations. Lisa sat on a bench outside the courtroom, flanked by a shark-eyed lawyer who looked like he billed by the second. Jake! Lisa stood, her voice saccharine. Can we talk? Just us. Emily's grip tightened. Jake didn't break stride. We'll talk to the judge. The courtroom smelled like with polish and anxiety. Jake guided Emily to the plaintiff's table, where ADA Reynolds waited with a reassuring smile. Remember, Reynolds whispered to Emily, you just need to tell the truth. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Wilkins, a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes, took her seat. Jake recognized her from Veterans Court. She didn't suffer fools. Lisa's lawyer, a slick-haired man named Covington, stood first. Your Honor, my client is a devoted mother. These allegations are... Save it, Wilkins interrupted. I've reviewed the police report and medical evaluation. She turned to Emily. Young lady, would you like to speak? Emily froze. Jake squeezed her hand. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Derek said it was a secret game. He'd squeeze my arms until I cried. Then he'd take pictures. A tear rolled down her cheek. He said Mommy would be mad at me if I told. Lisa gasped. Emily Grace, that's not. Wilkins' gavel cracked like a gunshot. One more outburst, Miss Carter, and you'll be removed. She turned back to Emily. Go on, sweetheart. Emily took a shaky breath. One time, He said we should play the game without clothes. I ran away and hid in the closet. The air left Jake's lungs. His vision tunneled. He'd known it was bad, but this? Reynolds stood quickly, placing a steadying hand on Jake's shoulder before addressing the judge. Given the severity, we're requesting immediate termination of Ms. Carter's visitation rights and full custody to Sergeant Carter. Covington jumped up. Your Honor, my client had no knowledge of... Enough. Wilkins' voice cut through the room. She studied Lisa, who sat perfectly still, her face pale. Ms. Carter, did you ever notice bruises on your daughter? Lisa's manicured fingers twisted together. Kids get bumps all the... Yes or no? A beat of silence. Then, so quiet it was almost inaudible, yes. The gavel fell. Temporary custody remains with Sergeant Carter. Ms. Carter's visitation is suspended pending psychological evaluations of both parents. Wilkins fixed Lisa with a steely gaze. I suggest you hire a criminal attorney. As the court adjourned, Lisa lunged toward Jake. You did this. You turned her against. Emily flinched. Jake shielded her with his body as bailiffs restrained Lisa. Outside, the Colorado sun shone bright. Emily trembled against him. It's over, she whispered. Jake knelt, wiping her tears with his thumbs. Not quite, firecracker, but close. He kissed her forehead. Let's go home. As they walked to the truck, Emily's hand in his, Jake realized home wasn't a place anymore. It was wherever she felt safe. The first night, the house was too quiet without the usual sounds of Emily's cartoons or her laughter bouncing off the walls. Jake stood in the doorway of her bedroom, watching as she carefully arranged her stuffed animals on the bed, a ritual she hadn't done since before his deployment. The bunny went in the center, flanked by a worn-out unicorn and a dinosaur with one eye missing. You good? Jake asked, leaning against the doorframe. Emily nodded, but her fingers lingered on the bunny's ears, twisting them nervously. Dad, what if Mom gets mad? Jake crossed the room in 2 strides and sat on the edge of her bed. The springs creaked under his weight. Listen to me, he said, tilted her chin up so her eyes met his. You don't ever have to worry about that again. The judge said so. But... No buts. He softened his voice. You're stuck with me now, firecracker. A ghost of a smile flickered across her face. Jake ruffled her hair. Pajamas. Teeth. Bed. I'll be right downstairs if you need me. He left the door slightly ajar behind him, the way she liked it. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence. Jake opened the fridge, then shut it again. He wasn't hungry. The events of the day played on a loop in his mind. Lisa's outburst, Emily's trembling voice in court, the way she had flinched when her mother lunged at them. His phone buzzed on the counter. Matt, you alive over there? Jake typed back, barely. 3 dots appeared, then, she's safe now. Remember that. Jake stared at the message until the screen went dark. A sound from upstairs made him freeze, a muffled whimper. He took the steps 2 at a time. Emily was sitting bolt upright in bed, her eyes wide and unseeing, her breaths coming in short gasps. Nightmare. Hey, hey! Jake sat beside her, careful not to grab her too suddenly. You're okay. You're home. She blinked rapidly, her gaze finally focusing on him. I dreamed he came back, she whispered. Jake's throat tightened. He pulled her into his lap, wrapping his arms around her. Derek's never coming near you again. I promise. Emily buried her face in his shirt. Can you stay here tonight? Jake didn't hesitate. Move over, kiddo. She scooted to one side of the twin bed, making room. Jake stretched out beside her, the bed creaking ominously under his weight. Emily giggled. You're gonna break it. Hey, I've survived worse sleeping conditions. He tucked the blanket around her. Once, in Iraq, I slept on a pile of rocks. Emily's nose wrinkled. Why? Because Sergeant Daniels bet me $20 I couldn't. She giggled again, the sound loosening something in Jake's chest. They lay in silence for a while, listening to the crickets outside. Then softly, Dad? Yeah. Are you going to go away again? Jake turned his head to look at her. The nightlight cast shadows across her face, making her look younger than 10. "Not a chance," he said. "Not unless you're with me." Emily nodded, satisfied. Her breathing slowed, her lashes fluttering against her cheeks. Jake watched her until he was sure she was asleep, then stared at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of her breaths. Downstairs, his phone buzzed again. Probably Matt. It could wait. Everything could wait. The uninvited guest. The morning sun painted warm stripes across the kitchen floor as Jake flipped pancakes, the chocolate chip kind, Emily's favorite. She sat at the counter, swinging her legs, still in her pajamas with her hair a tangled mess. The nightmare seemed forgotten, at least for now. "Can I have extra syrup?" she asked, pushing her plate forward. Jake smirked. "You're going to rot your teeth out." She grinned, revealing the gap where a front tooth had been loose for weeks. Too late. The doorbell rang. Jake's spatula froze mid-flip. No one visited this early. No one they wanted to see. Anyway, Emily's smile vanished. Her legs stopped swinging. Jake set the spatula down. "Stay here." He moved to the front door, his body tense. Through the peephole, he saw a woman in a navy blazer holding a clipboard. Social services? Lawyer? He opened the door just enough to block the entrance. "Can I help you?" The woman offered a polite smile. "Mr. Carter? I'm Lauren Hayes, with Child Protective Services. I need to speak with Emily as part of our follow-up investigation." Jake's grip on the door tightened. "She's eating breakfast." Hayes' smile didn't waver. "This won't take long." Behind him, small footsteps padded closer. Emily peeked around his leg, her eyes wide. Hayes knelt, bringing herself to Emily's level. "Hi, Emily. I just want to ask you a few questions about your mom and Derek. Is that okay?" Jake's jaw clenched. "Anything you need to ask, you can ask with me present." Hayes stood, her expression unreadable. "Of course." They moved to the living room. Emily sat pressed against Jake's side, her fingers twisting in the hem of his shirt. Hayes pulled out a notepad. "Emily, has your dad ever told you not to talk about what happened with Derek?" Jake shot to his feet. "What kind of question is that?" Hayes remained calm. "Standard procedure, Mr. Carter. We have to ensure the child isn't being influenced." Emily spoke up, her voice small but clear. "Dad said I should always tell the truth." Hayes nodded, jotting something down. "And how do you feel living here with just your dad?" Emily looked up at Jake, then back at Hayes. "Safe." The word hit Jake like a punch to the chest. Hayes asked a few more questions. About school, friends, if she missed her mom. Emily answered quietly but honestly. When Hayes finally closed her notebook, Jake walked her to the door. "She's doing remarkably well considering," Hayes said quietly. "But these cases, they often resurface later. I'd recommend therapy." Jake nodded stiffly. "Already on it." As Hayes left, Jake turned to find Emily standing in the hallway, her pancake forgotten. "Are they going to make me go back?" she whispered. Jake scooped her up, hugging her tight. "Not a chance, firecracker." She buried her face in his neck. "Good, because I like it here." Jake carried her back to the kitchen, where the pancakes were cold but the syrup was still sweet. The doorbell had been a false alarm. No Lisa, no Derek, just bureaucracy doing its job. But the way Emily clung to him, her arms tight around his neck, told him the scars ran deeper than either of them wanted to admit. And healing, he realized, would take more than just keeping her safe. It would take time. Luckily, they had all the time in the world. The first session, the waiting room smelled like lavender and old magazines. Emily sat stiffly in a chair that was too big for her, her feet dangling above the floor, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She hadn't spoken since they'd walked in. Jake nudged her gently. "You okay?" She nodded, but her fingers twisted the hem of her shirt. A door opened down the hall, and a woman with curly brown hair and a warm smile stepped out. "Emily, I'm Dr. Bennett. Ready to chat?" Emily looked up at Jake, her eyes wide and uncertain. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'll be right here when you're done." Dr. Bennett knelt to Emily's level. "You know what? You don't even have to talk today, if you don't want to. We can just play with some toys." How's that sound? Emily hesitated, then nodded. She slid off the chair and followed Dr. Bennett down the hall, glancing back once before the door closed behind her. Jake exhaled, running a hand through his hair. He hated this. Hated sending her in alone. Hated that she had to relive any of it at all. But Hayes was right. Emily needed this. His phone buzzed, Matt again. How's it going? Jake typed back. She just went in. I feel like I'm going to puke. Matt's reply was instant. She's tougher than you think. Jake shoved his phone back in his pocket and picked up a worn-out parenting magazine. He flipped through it without reading, his ears straining for any sound from down the hall. Silence. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Emily walked out, clutching a small stuffed turtle. Jake stood quickly. Hey, firecracker. How'd it go? Emily held up the turtle. Dr. Bennett said I can keep him. His name's Sheldon. Jake smiled. Cool name. Dr. Bennett gave him a reassuring nod. She did great. Same time next week. Jake nodded, relief washing over him. Yeah, thanks. Outside, the sun was shining. Emily buckled herself into the truck, carefully setting Sheldon in her lap. You hungry? Jake asked, starting the engine. Emily nodded. Can we get burgers? Burgers it is. As they pulled into the drive-thru, Emily spoke again, her voice quieter. Dad? Yeah. Dr. Bennett said, I don't have a talk about the bad stuff unless I want to. Jake glanced at her. That's good, right? Emily nodded, stroking Sheldon's shell. Yeah, but I think maybe I want to. Next time. Jake's throat tightened. He reached over, squeezing her hand. Whatever you need, Em. She squeezed back, her grip surprisingly strong. And for the first time since he'd come home, Jake felt like maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. The breaking point. Rain lashed against the windows of the house, a steady drumbeat that had lasted all day. Jake sat at the kitchen table, bills and legal documents spread out in front of him. The custody battle was draining his savings. But he didn't care, whatever it took. A crash from upstairs made him jerk upright. Emily? No answer. He took the stairs two at a time. Emily's door was closed, but he could hear muffled sobs from inside. Em? You okay? He knocked gently. Can I come in? Silence. Then a small, broken voice. Go away. Jake's chest tightened. He eased the door open. Emily sat on the floor, surrounded by torn paper, her drawings ripped to shreds. Her face was red and streaked with tears. Sheldon the turtle abandoned near the door like he'd been thrown. Hey, Jake said softly, crouching beside her. What's going on? Emily swiped angrily at her face. I hate him. I hate Derek. I hate Mom. I hate. Her voice cracked, dissolving into sobs. Jake gathered her into his arms, holding her tight as she shook. He didn't speak, didn't tell her it was okay, because it wasn't, and she deserved to be angry. After a long moment, Emily's sobs quieted. She pulled back, sniffling. Dr. Bennett said anger is normal, she mumbled. Jake smoothed her hair. She's right. Emily picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. I don't get it. Why did Mom stop him? The question Jake had asked himself 1,000 times. He chose his words carefully. Some people don't see what they don't want to see. Emily frowned. That's stupid. Jake huffed a laugh. Yeah, it is. She wiped her nose on her sleeve, then looked around at the mess. Sorry about the drawings. Don't be. Jake stood, grabbing the trash can. Help me clean up, then let's wreck some ice cream. Emily's smile was small but real. With sprinkles? Obviously. As they cleaned, Jake watched her carefully. This was progress. Real, raw, messy progress. The storm wasn't over, but maybe, just maybe, they were learning to dance in the rain. Chapter 12. The New Normal. Sunlight streamed to the curtains as Jake flipped pancakes, chocolate chip, as usual. Emily sat at the counter, swinging her legs, chattering about school. And then Sarah said we should start a dinosaur club, and I said only if I could be the T-Rex because she stopped mid-sentence, frowning. Dad, you're burning them. Jake cursed, flipping the charred pancake onto a plate. Distracted by your riveting dinosaur politics. Emily giggled, stealing a piece of chocolate from the bowl. The doorbell rang. Emily froze, her smile fading. Jake squeezed her shoulder. I got it. Through the peephole, he saw a delivery man holding a bouquet of flowers. He opened the door. Jake Carter? Yeah. Sign here. Jake scribbled his name and took the flowers. The card read, I'm sorry. Can we talk? Lisa. Emily peered at them. Who are they from? Jake hesitated. Your mom. Emily's face closed off. Oh. Jake set the flowers aside. We don't have to talk about it. Emily picked at her pancake. Do you think she's really sorry? I don't know, Firecracker. Jake sat beside her. But whatever happens, we handle it together. Deal. Emily nodded, her shoulders relaxing. Deal. Jake nudged her plate. Eat your pancake before it gets cold. As Emily chatted on about dinosaurs again, Jake watched her, his heart full. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more court dates, more therapy sessions, more hard conversations. But in this moment, with the sun shining and his daughter laughing, Jake knew one thing for certain. They were going to be okay. The end. Asterisk. If the story of courage and resilience moved you, don't let the inspiration stop here. Like and subscribe for more powerful tales of ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder. No matter how dark the storm, love and determination can light the way. Bell turn on notifications so you never miss an uplifting story. Speech balloon comment below. What moment impacted you the most?